Thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. It's 106 right now. Temperatures outside in the mid and upper 20s. Wind finally light out of the west at 7 miles an hour. We're seeing a lot of cleanup around the area, but still some of those highways and interstates remain closed at the moment. I'm meteorologist Justin Storm. I'm here with Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki and Ag Director Bridgette Readel. And guys, what a beautiful day it's turning out there right now.
Shush, it's supposed to be 50. Come on.
Hey, it's not, come on.
It will be next week.
Hey, come on.
Sure will be.
Yeah.
Okay. Answer me this, gentlemen. I need to know, with the forecast, it's talking about 50 degrees next week. How are we going to do that with all this white snowpack out there?
Because if it wasn't, it'd probably be well in the 60s.
So that much heat coming from the sun. We're really going to get there.
It's really going to warm up significantly next week. In fact, if you like golfing, the Masters starts today, and if you're just itching to golf, all you have to do next week is drive about 6 hours south. Areas of Nebraska and Iowa are going to be in the 70s and maybe some 80s too. And the golf courses are open, I checked. So it's really
Let me guess, you're taking a couple of days off next week.
Well, maybe. That's
right?
possible. That's possible. Maybe a road trip. But it's, so the warm air is not that far away. And by next week, and it will be the beneficiaries of some 40s and 50s next week. And that's good and bad. This is the most, I was checking records, this is the deepest snowpack we've had for so late in the season. I looked at the floods of 97 and 2011, and although we had more snowpack in March, I believe, was it 97? We had 31 inches on the ground. By the time we started April, it was only like 8 inches. So that's going to be an important part of how this plays into flooding for later this month. I mean, the LRC has a storm pegged at us about a week after Easter, so we're looking at about mid-month. Now, how does that come at our area? Does it come in a couple of pieces? Does it go south? That will be that's going to play a big part on, do we get more snow? Do we get heavy rain out of that? Or does it go south? That's a possibility too. I'm voting for south. Really, we don't want to aggravate any already flooding potential that's coming our way as we head towards the end of the month.
Yeah, definitely.
Where
I think
should
the other
I
big
cast
thing
that
that
vote? Because Dean just said he votes for it to go south. Is there a box somewhere I should put my ballot?
there's a
in?
box on the office in the weather center,
Yeah,
Bridgette.
that's where it's at.
Okay, got it.
I think another big thing that's going to play a role in the flooding potential that's kind of a good thing is the amount of frost that's in the ground, or maybe I should say lack of frost. And if you're looking at soil temperatures across eastern North Dakota and western Minnesota and northwest Minnesota, temperatures from the surface to 8 inches down are 29 to 33 degrees. So, I mean, the frost layer is not that deep, and it's pretty light in that fact.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a great thing for us. I mean, we saw that video earlier this week from Hillsboro where the shovelful of soil, it was very much dried out, right? It wasn't sticking together. It wasn't muddy. There was no frost there. That's going to help. But there is a lot of moisture out here that's got to go, folks. No doubt.
Oh, I got a 7 or 8 foot pile of snow in front of my door. I'll be looking forward to not seeing that anymore.
Man, I think a lot of people are just we're tired of winter. At least we had breaks over the last few years, and this year has just been ongoing. And well, we'll get there. We'll get there. But again, just to hope and pray that we don't get any heavy rain events between now and the end of the month. Again, the LRC calendar does have at least a potential for major storms between the middle and end of the month. So let's hope those go south. But boy, I wouldn't lay any money on that. It's odds are one of those is going to at least clip us. And let's just hope it's not heavy rain with that. That's the last thing we really need.
Right. And Bridgette, I want to know, what have you heard from ag community out there with calving season ongoing? I've seen a couple of articles kind of passing around on the feeds of Facebook and how they're dealing with calving during this last storm that we just had. What have you been hearing?
Well, so we're not freezing cold. I mean, we're below freezing at night, right? And like yesterday, I think last night we got down to somewhere around 3 degrees, but it's not 20 below zero, etc. So folks knew they've got their animals in barns or behind shelters. It's getting tougher and tougher to feed them. because haystacks are completely buried. You're having trouble clearing a path for tractors to get into where they need to be. And we can at least keep water as open, but it's been a struggle and it's been ongoing for quite a while. You know, there's folks that haven't been getting any sleep for about 6 weeks now. They're tired. And it would be nice if things thawed out. The downside to that is mud does tend to bring disease during calving and lambing season because all the animals are covered in mud, manure, and it's easy for that to enter the calf's system and cause scours. So we're just really hoping that things get better sooner than later.
You know, you've mentioned before of dust or ammonia or pneumonia.
Dust pneumonia.
Is that a factor this season, or is that kind of not as big of a deal and we switch the concerns to something different due to the amount of moisture that we've seen?
We would see actual pneumonia right now, not dust pneumonia. Dust pneumonia happens when we have really dry conditions and calves being lowered to the ground are continually inhaling that dust. So we're just looking at a regular pneumonia situation, if you will. Doesn't that sound sort of odd? But right now, if we could just get things to clean, allow us to clean up. If you've looked at North Dakota Highway Patrol's Facebook and Twitter pages, it's no different than what you're seeing from farmers and ranchers in both Dakotas and Minnesota, where it is barely a rutted goat path to get somewhere in order to feed your livestock right now. And that's just wearing on a lot of people. And equipment breaks. This last snowfall was really heavy and wet. It's hard to move it, and we're running out of places to put it.
Yeah, we definitely are. And I'm surprised I didn't break a shear pin on my snowblower this year. I usually get one to break every year. It didn't happen this year. I got lucky.
So you're assuming we're
two here.
You're assuming we're done using it. Yeah.
I don't know about everyone else, but I'm done using it.
Okay.
I'll let it melt if we get more. And I think there's more snow in the forecast. At least a possibility for a little light snow is that that's tonight.
I have a friend on Twitter who posted a picture of her snowblower and said, "We've spent too much time together. I'm past this. Perhaps we should break up." So I think
it's not you. It's me.
Yeah, right.
It's me.
It's me.
You know, Bridge, I want to hit an ag topic because this is going to be, in a way, kind of related to our guests that'll be joining us, and I'll introduce who that'll be here coming up in just a moment. But weather losses in agriculture in a pretty astonishing number, around $21 billion. This is an ag topic we didn't get to yesterday, but that is a huge number.
Okay, so this all came in some market intel that came from American Farm Bureau. And this is just talking about 2022's crop losses. This does not take into account livestock, pasture, rangeland, or facilities and equipment, right? Like grain bins, et cetera. So if you're just looking at what happened in crop, Texas took the biggest hit with $6.4 billion in crop losses, primarily to cotton, but also to their rangeland, and wheat, $1 billion in wheat. That's attributed to an exceptionally large drought area in that state. Kansas was second. They they lost $3.3 billion in incurred losses due to drought conditions. That was in corn as well as sorghum and wheat. South Dakota was in fourth place. They were plagued by drought in several areas of their state. That was $1.4 billion in damages. So when you think about what's been happening over the last year, and let's go back 2 years to talk about the drought situation in many parts of the U.S., it's adding up. And if we're wondering why our food costs continue to increase, it's not just inflation, it's reasons like this that are affecting us as well.
Right. And I know that we have our fair share of loss in weather, and I believe that most of ours, at least damage and money loss, outside of hail and our big storms for the ag community, and property and structures, comes from the winter storms that we get up here with all the blowing snow and drifting snow. And that kind of fits in with who our guest is going to be today. That's Dr. Aaron Kennedy from the University of North Dakota. He's a professor with the Atmospheric Sciences Department, and he's just been awarded a grant from the National Science Foundation to continue research on blowing snow that leads to ground blizzards, which, as we all know, are a big headache and can be a little tricky to forecast. So if you want to join in our conversation, ask Aaron a question, or any of us, feel free to do so. Give us a call on the Red Wing Shoe Studio line at 701-293-9000. We're going to take a short moment here, get Aaron Kennedy from, again, UND, connected with us. We're going to find out what kind of research it is that he's doing on this blowing snow and how that research could benefit all of us coming up in just a moment.
Time now for Focus on the Field with your Ag Director, agriculturalist Bridgette Readel.
To reduce the effects of pesticide drift and protect pollinators, researchers with the USDA in Stoneville, Mississippi are investigating the best ways of using hooded sprayers and conventional unhooded sprayers. Pesticide drift occurs when pesticide dust or droplets move through the air to another place other than the target area during or after application. This off-target drift can cause crop damage as well as health concerns to beneficial insects such as bees and biocontrol agents. The researchers are studying pre-emergent herbicide applications for corn, soybean, and cotton on 3 regional commercial-sized scale farms and also research farms. After collecting their data, they will be able to give better direction on the effects of using hooded sprayers in applications.
That's today's Focus on the Field with Bridgette Readel, your ag industry expert. Tune in for Bridgette's Ag News updates each weekday here on WDAY.
You've heard of the saying, out with the old and in with the new. Hi, Teresa here from the Fargo Red Wing Shoe Store. Have you been hanging on to those tired old Red Wing boots that no longer give you the comfort and support that you need or deserve? Why wait? Stop in and see our certified fit specialist and get you a brand new pair of boots. Believe it or not, feet change over time. So let us use the newest technology to help you find the best fitting boots. 3003 Main Avenue in Fargo, Red Wing Shoes for ultimate durability.
We now call to order the meeting of extraordinary heroes. Thunderfoot, here. Mega Maiden,
Let's go.
Wheat Farmer.
Yeah, what am I doing here?
You defeated Evil Dawn and saved your crop quality.
Well, yeah, I used Sphere X fungicide on my wheat and barley.
Keep your secrets, man.
No secret, just best-in-class Dawn reduction.
So modest, a mighty hero indeed.
Be a hero with Sphere X fungicide from BASF.
Always read and follow label directions.
There are a ton of social networking websites, but one stands apart for a very special reason. This one saves lives. It's MatchingDonors.com. MatchingDonors.com links organ donors with people in need of kidney and other transplants. In the U.S., 22 people die each day waiting for an organ transplant, most of them for kidneys. If you've ever considered becoming a living organ donor, or if you're someone in need of an organ transplant, visit MatchingDonors.com, home of the greatest gift of all, the gift of life. MatchingDonors.com.
After the indictment, the big media spin is all against President Trump. But one cable news channel leads the way in real news. That's Newsmax. I watch it all the time. Now the Newsmax poll is asking Americans if the Trump indictment is for a real crime or just politics. And the Newsmax poll asks if you still support Trump for president in 2024. You can vote right now. Just text the word ZONE to 39747. That's ZONE to 39747. It takes just a minute. And tune in to Newsmax with great hosts like Rob Schmidt, Greta Van Susteren, Eric Bolling, and a lot more. Newsmax on all major cable systems and streaming TVs. So vote now in the Newsmax poll about the Trump indictment and his run for president. Text ZONE to 39747. And make sure your voice is heard.
Hi, it's Lon from Irie Insurance. Soon we'll swap snow for summertime. Boat rides and water skiing, camping in the RV, swimming in the backyard pool, or even a few rounds of golf. Unfortunately, these activities come with increased risks and sadly accidents happen. Having the proper insurance can protect you from theft, damage, liability, and more. Experience the Irie difference. Let Irie Insurance take care of your summer risks. To find a location near you, visit us at IrieInsurance.com.
Back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining us 1:20 on this afternoon. Again, I'm meteorologist Justin Storm with Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki and our one and only very talented Ag Director Bridgette Readel. And we'd encourage you to join in on our conversation today. If you want to ask any questions, feel free to do so by calling 701-293-9000. That's our Red Wing Shoes studio phone line. You can also always reach us via email, weather or ag at flagfamily.com. At this time, I'd like to introduce our guests, and I find it pretty fitting coming right outside of a blizzard. That's Dr. Aaron Kennedy from the University of North Dakota Atmospheric Sciences Department, and he's doing some research on blowing snow that leads to all these nasty events that shut down our state. Aaron, how are you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
I'm great. You know, the sun's out. It's nice out. We had bad weather yesterday. What?
Yeah.
So tell me about this grant that you've just received. I believe this just started on March 1st. You were included in an article back in February about this grant from the National Science Foundation to continue ongoing research you're doing on these blowing snow and blizzard events.
Yeah, so this is a collaborative project. We're actually working with Ohio State University, and my part is the observation. So we want to know how these blizzards and ground blizzards work. We're going to put up weather balloons that have really unique instruments on them. We've got surface instruments, like I've built a snowflake camera. It actually takes pictures of the snowflakes as they go by, and just trying to figure out, is it snowing, is it blowing, is it both? What's going on, right? And those observations are what we need to make the weather models better. And so my friends out at Iowa State University, Dave Bromwich and his crew, they're actually polar and Antarctic researchers. And so they've got a special weather model that has blowing snow in it. And so something the viewers may not know is our current weather models that we use, they don't have blowing snow in it. So the snow falls out of the sky, it reaches the ground, and then it just melts, right? And that's not how it works in our neck of the woods. And so my friends at Ohio State are going to run this model that has the blowing snow in it, and we want to see what happens. Can we actually simulate these ground blizzards? And if not, how do we make it simulate them?
Right. So with this information that you're obtaining, are you trying to match it up to what these special models are indicating to see if what they're indicating is what's actually happening in real life?
Yeah, I think the goal is we want to make sure that the blowing snow that's in this model actually works right. And then if it is, that gives us evidence that, hey, you know what, we can include this in our weather models that NOAA and the National Weather Service use. That way their forecasters have the best possible information when they make a forecast, right? And so I really work behind the scenes. My goal is to make you and your viewers be less angry at meteorologists when we blow a forecast.
So why is it that you think that the models don't have this in them right now? Because us as meteorologists and forecasters know that even forecasting snow in general, yet alone the exact impacts to individual spots with a blizzard is extremely challenging, and the general public doesn't quite understand exactly how much goes into it. And a lot of times you get missed forecast, or hey, it hits really hard right here, but you go so many miles east and it's not quite as bad. Why do you think that is?
Well, a lot of it just comes into the observations that are going into the models, right? There's really, in the scheme of things, not that many. Especially for the type of processes I'm looking at, like blowing snow. So I think historically, if you look at like, why isn't this actually in our models? It's because we just don't have the observations to figure out how we would put in the models to start with, right? The starting point we're using is some research that came out of the Canadian prairies. So farther up the way, the Canadians are probably a little ahead of us in terms of like forecasting blowing snow. And so we're trying to incorporate some of their methods, put it into our models and see what happens.
Now, Aaron, would this be used for just, I'm guessing, the short-term models, the HER, the RAP, stuff like that? I'm guessing it
Yeah, so yeah, that's what we're doing, is we're using for the short-term models. And so I have a student right now that he's taking the HER and the RAP and that type of model output and then driving a blowing snow model to see, okay, how does it do? And then the real fun part is actually putting the process in the weather models. And so what I like to tell people is, you get out of the shower and you feel cold, right? That water's evaporating. Well, actually, when you get blowing snow in the atmosphere, it can sublimate. It can go from that frozen state to gas. That actually causes cooling. And so we think that sometimes our forecasts are wrong because we don't get that cooling in the atmosphere that happens because the process isn't in the model to start with. Like you can't expect the model to be right if it doesn't even have the natural process occurring in it that's really there.
What kind of results have you? First, how long have you been doing this research, and what kind of results have you seen from it so far?
Yeah, so I guess you live in North Dakota long enough and winter rubs off on you, right? And so I started off as a severe weather meteorologist. I did a lot of work with like supercell thunderstorms, which Justin knows all about, and tornadoes, and looking at them with radar and stuff. And I moved up from Oklahoma to here in 2006. And then at that point, I was funded to do some other more climate-related research. And then finally 2013 is when I started my faculty job. And at that point, the puzzle pieces were spinning in my brain. I was talking to the Weather Service, said, I had some questions about this stuff, and they didn't have the answers. And I looked at the science in the field, and they didn't have the answers. And the brain keeps spinning, right? And so I started doing winter weather research, and now that's sort of like my bread and butter now. Like I just, when the winter's bad, I love it.
Well, you're living in the right place, that's for sure.
I know, right?
So with that work, I am the ag director, knowing more about farming here than blizzards exactly, but tell me what I can learn from that if I've got livestock, etc. Where's that research going to lead us? What do I get to use it for?
So I think probably the biggest impact to come out of this will just be a better forecast when we expect the blowing snow and when it may not be blowing around. Yesterday was actually a pretty good example of how complex these events can be. At the end of the day, we need wind to cause blowing snow. At least at my field site, west of Grand Forks, it really wasn't all that bad. Most of the winds are a little bit stronger out of the valley. And so a lot of the fun stuff we're going to be doing is looking at how does the valley and like the Turtle Mountains and these different regional features, how does that really impact our weather systems? And so we're actually going to be taking the weather model and running an event and seeing how it produces blowing snow and falling snow. And then we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to remove the Turtle Mountains. We're going to remove the valley and just make it a flat surface and see, does the weather pattern happen the same way? And the hope is by doing that, we'll understand just how important the valley impacts are. So, how much funneling and wind do we get down the valley? Why, in some cases, is the blowing snow limited to the valley? In other cases, it's more widespread. There's a lot of things that go into that.
So I'm also curious, you mentioned climate dollars or dollars for research for climate change, et cetera. Do you think that there's more money available as of late for that? And I've heard a couple of banks are making changes that they're not going to spend as much on that kind of research. But what do you think from your end of it?
From my end, I mean, there's always like what I would call like climate system research. And so that type of work is focused on like seasonal prediction, longer term prediction. For example, the blowing snow stuff, like how do I get this research funded? Well, it depends on the agency, right? And so in Antarctica and the North Pole and these areas, blowing snow is really important because it's part of what we call the mass balance of the snow at the surface. And so over long periods of time, if you don't have blowing snow in the model, you're not going to identify properly whether that glacier is going to grow or decay. So it has long-term impacts on what happens to the light and reflecting back to space, that type of stuff. Here, of course, we care because it impacts us, right? Like, are we going to go to grandma's house today? Well, no, because it's a blizzard, right? And so if I'm writing a proposal to NOAA, I'm saying, hey, this is a life and death type of process. You could get stuck in the countryside. Bad things are going to happen. We need to better forecast this. If I'm going to an agency like the Department of Energy, which is focused more on energy systems, climate, that type of stuff, then I'm, I don't want to say playing, but I'm advertising more of what are the long-term impacts of blowing snow, what that means for our Earth system models. And then there's even other, like the National Science Foundation stuff, there's certainly the impacts on us, but it's more like the core meat and potatoes of the science, the basic science research. This cooling that happens with blowing snow doesn't matter. Like, do we need this in our weather models, or does it turn out that it's really not that important and we don't have to worry about it? Because if we don't have to worry about it, that means we can make our weather models like less complex than they need to be. And that means they could run faster and it's not a big deal.
Maybe I can
We had an
travel
email
more, guys.
question. Yeah, Bridgette seems to be traveling every single day. There's a bad storm this year. It's so unfortunate for her. But we had an emailer question come in. They were wondering, how do you go about submitting your work? Does it just get sent to the University of North Dakota, or is it like weather and science journals that are getting looked at? Where does this information go once you obtain it?
Yeah, so actually one of the great things that the government's doing right now is really pushing towards what we call open science, so that no one can hide behind the work they're doing. And so what happens is I write a proposal, and so I spend a bunch of time. You want to have maybe some sample data or something, and then I write this proposal, and then the university puts their name on it, and it goes to whatever agency is interested. Maybe it's Department of Energy, maybe it's NOAA, maybe National Science Foundation, maybe it's Department of Defense. I have some DoD projects. And then it goes off, and then I call it the academic lottery. And so you put all this time and effort in the proposal, and does it actually get funded, right? And so what happens is it goes before basically a judge and jury panel, and it could be scientists, it could be people within the agencies, and they look at your proposal and a bunch of other proposals, and they decide, okay, is the science sound? And if it's sound, it doesn't match the program priorities. For example, with my NOAA project, they were looking for innovative winter observations, and that's like what my snowflake camera does. And they decided, yeah, you know what, it does. The scientists liked it, and so, okay, we're going to give it the green light to get funded. Then you get that funding. A tiny, tiny, tiny piece of that pays for like a month of my salary for the year. The rest goes to typically grad students, keeping the lights on in institution. A little bit of that money goes toward making sure the science is made public so people can actually act upon it. And so that could end up being journal articles. And so it goes into journals from like the American Meteorological Society or from American Geophysical Union or whatever journals are out there. And all of these journals are now pushing open science. And so what happens is when I publish a paper, I have a website where you can actually look at the computer code that I use to generate my analysis. It has the data. You can basically reproduce my study. And that's a good thing, right? That basically means that you're not going to have these scare stories that sometimes come out of, like, say, the biomed field where people fabricated data, right? It's happened. You know, it's happened before. I like to think in our community, there's a lot less chance of that happening just because so much of our data is public. And so a little more taxpayer dollars go to making our satellite data public or radar data public or whatever. And that's a good thing for us because that makes the science more sound at the end of the day. So yeah, the science goes out there, publications and all sorts of fun places.
Awesome. Thanks for the explanation on that. We're going to hit bottom of the hour real quick. When we come back, you know, this isn't just research that you personally are doing it. The university is getting involved as well. Graduate and undergraduate students are getting their hands on what it's like being in the field, obtaining this information and knowledge, and possibly leading them into a field of their career. So when we come back, we'll tackle that, a few more questions, and as well as yours. If you have any, again, give us a phone call on the Red Wings studio line at 701-293-9000. Stay tuned because we'll be right back.
No matter what the season is, you want an ice-cold beverage that's not going to slow you down while you watch the big game.
You know what? I could really use something, James. What do you got in mind?
How about a Michelob Ultra, the superior light beer that goes down smooth with only 96 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Or a Michelob Ultra Pure Gold. It's brewed with organic grains from the finest fields to craft a crisp taste with no artificial flavors or colors.
Make the winning choice by grabbing yourself a case of Mich Ultra or Mich Ultra Pure Gold today.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today the beginning of your fresh start with the IRS. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief now for your free confidential consultation.
Call 800-783-8055. That's 800-783-8055. 800-783-8055.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
It's March, and you know what that means. Taxes are almost due. Jackson Hewitt can help you win tax season. That's the sound of your maximum tax refund. The sound of getting 50% off tax prep. The sound of many of our competitors' prices going up. And the sound of getting to your nearest Jackson Hewitt. Hurry in for 50% off tax prep before this offer expires April 9th. Limited time offer for new clients filing in participating locations. Max value $200. Visit jacksonhewitt.com/50 for terms.
Did you know that pork is the world's most consumed meat? Pork comprises over 1/3 of all meat consumed. Pigs were domesticated over 9,000 years ago in 7,000 BC, and there are more than 180 species of pigs. Why pork? Well, it's not just because everybody loves bacon. Historically speaking, pork is a very easy meat to preserve via smoking, curing, or salting. Not only could it keep well before refrigeration, but it also tastes great under various preservation tactics and adaptable to a variety of flavors, spices, and dishes across differing cultures and regions. There are twice as many pigs as there are people in Denmark. Did you also know that China is the world's lead pork producer? In 2020, they produced an impressive 41.13 million metric tons of the meat, which equates to almost 91 billion pounds. So the next time you dive into that plate of bacon, know that pork is the world's most consumed meat. These farm facts brought to you by the American Ag Network.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining us 1:38 on this Thursday afternoon. We're joined with Dr. Aaron Kennedy, a professor and researcher at the University of North Dakota Atmospheric Sciences Department. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on the Red Wing studio line, 701-293-9000. Aaron, I was teasing into a question, but before I get to that, I got another one that I want to answer. In this article that was written about you, you were mentioned that we've taken all the lessons that you've learned over the last few years to conduct the largest field campaign in blowing snow in the region. Because this isn't your first research project, you've had a couple more, and I was involved in one of them a few years ago. But what goes into these past research projects that makes them the largest, and why is blowing snow and blizzard such an under-researched thing?
Well, I guess at the end of the day, there's just not that many of us living up here, right? And actually, some of the first proposals I wrote, I remember a viewer said, "Nobody lives in the Northern Plains. Why should we fund this?" That's basically what they said, and that made me pretty salty, right? And so, thankfully, that's changed. We've had some really good luck, but it came down to marketing, saying, "Look, I don't necessarily think not many people here live here or whatever, but I say, you know what, this is why it impacts other areas, why you should care, right?" And then finally people are like, "Okay, we'll fund you." But what makes this the biggest campaign for this upcoming project is we're gonna normally, we'll launch a weather balloon from Grand Forks or whatever, but we really, really want to understand the spatial variability, like how much these blizzards vary from across the valley and the region. And so we're going to have a sounding site located just out of the valley, out more towards the Devil's Lake. We're going to have another one up by Hallock in Minnesota. And then we'll have some other instruments up there. We're deploying instruments across the North Dakota Agricultural Weather Network. And so NDON is a huge, huge partner with us. They've been awesome to work with. We have like what I would call the winter weather testbed NDON site out west of town. And they'll be putting some instruments on their stations. And so really it's just going to be the number of students we have involved on this project. We'll have a student team at each sounding location. We're going to do these weather balloons. We'll have the weather balloon location in town, and then utilizing all the other stuff we have in the area, weather radars and so on, to make this a really, really large project. And it's going to be fun.
That's awesome. Hey, Aaron, so when all is said and done and the research is done here, obviously this is, like you said, to help improve the forecasting. And Would this change any parameters in terms of, and I've got kind of a follow-up, would this possibly change the parameters of how the National Weather Service issues a blizzard warning, or maybe change the criteria of what would constitute a blizzard?
Well, I'm not going to go into the details of like how the Weather Service defines products and how they issue it, because that's a whole other ballgame, right?
Right.
But what would happen is, like, right now, the Weather Service uses like statistical models where they say, well, based off these events we've had in the past, here's what we think the probability of blowing snow is, right? And that's coming separate from what the actual weather models are outputting, because the weather models don't say anything about blowing snow. What our research would do is say, hey, just like we have like a precipitation output or a snowfall output from the model, it would also have something that says, hey, here's where the blowing snow is, how intense it will be, here's what the visibility reduction would be. And then what can happen is they can tie that into all their other models and then come up with the actual probability of what the blowing snow impacts would be.
Okay. And how soon do you plan on having the research done and maybe having this model fully implemented with the National Weather Service and other agencies?
That will be a long time.
Okay.
So good science is slow and methodical,
sure.
Right? And so where we're at right now is we're doing these simplified model runs right now, and then the next 2 years will be focused. Like, so next winter and the following winter, we'll be doing our big field campaign. We'll use those observations to verify what's happening in the actual weather model. And if we get good results, that's actually where we'd write the next proposal that says, okay, now we're going to include this into the model that NOAA uses and put it in the hands of the Weather Service to see what happens.
Kind of like an experimental model they could use.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
There's a lot of experimental models right now for like convective, like severe storm weather. We want the same thing except for winter weather, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have some very rudimentary ways they're doing blowing snow right now. I don't think it's very good, to be honest with you. So I think I can do it better. So that's what I'm going to do, and we'll see who the winner is. And you know what? Even if I'm not the winner and they are, that's okay, because at the end of the day, we benefit.
Yeah.
So a part of science is failing, right? That's. Go ahead.
Yeah, is finding out you're failing, but yet you're finding out of that, and that's what matters the most.
Yep.
Which leads me to my question for you: what's changed, or what have you learned from the onset of the start of this research to where you are now? Have there been any big aha moments for you?
Yeah, so I think the coolest thing is that these blowing snow events actually behave sort of like miniature thunderstorms. And so we refer to thunderstorms as convection. It's like air moving upward in the atmosphere. And what we're finding is some of these ground blizzards are actually a type of convection. It's just very, very shallow, and there isn't lightning and thunder. But because it's convection, it can have a lot of variability, right? And so in town, the conditions might look nice, blue sky. Hey, what's that white thing on the horizon? Well, that's the convective roll that you just drove into that has the blowing snow and the blizzard conditions, right? And it's a tale of two situations. In one part of the road, you're perfectly fine, and you go a mile down the road and you're miserable and you're stuck, right? And we really want to be able to simulate this type of stuff so we can tell people whether the conditions will be super widespread, white out everywhere, or is it going to be more scattered where, okay, just get past this one little convective roll and you'll be okay, and then maybe hang out in the clear area for a while so you don't get stuck.
When it comes to the involvement of the students that are engaging in this with you, because you're doing a lot of it for the educational purposes for the graduate students as well as the undergraduate students, you had mentioned that they're getting involved by helping launch the balloons, planning for the weather events, you do forecasting, briefings ahead of time, everyone's on the same plan. What's been the feedback from the graduate and undergraduate students that you teach in return? What do they think about all this research and getting out of it?
Well, the students are generally like me. The less I'm in front of a computer, the more I'm out in the field actually observing and learning things. That's what's exciting, right? And that's probably the coolest thing about our field is we're all about observing and seeing what's happening and getting out there, launching a weather balloon into one of these convective rolls with blowing snow. It's fun, right? You freeze your butt off doing it, but it's rewarding, especially when you get that balloon off the ground, you don't hit a light post or whatever, and when we had like the radar truck out there, the picture of you leaving the radar truck is just that really epitomizes what science is all about. And we took that radar truck, Justin knows, and we destroyed it. Like it was stuck on that road for days afterwards, right? And so we used that.
One of 4 in the entire United States. That brings up an interesting point there, because you brought out the Doppler on wheels, you know, the big radar truck from the Weather Channel storm chasing series back in the day, and you use that to gather very low level scans of that shallow low of potential convection, what the snow is actually doing. And you get this thing between the Mayville radar, there's a radar on top of the university, I believe it's Clifford Hall or Odegaard. Both of them, I think, might have one. You get something called dual radar, and you get different products you can get from that. But when you implement this third radar from the Doppler on wheels, you get a tri-radar. What's the benefits of having 3 radars to scan an event like this?
So in that case, it was you could actually map out what the exact air motions are. It turns out that actually combining the 3 radar data is super difficult, though, with all there's what you call ground clutter. So you're hitting like power lines and stuff like that. And so I actually, for this upcoming proposal, I didn't actually put in weather radars, because I think we can actually use these instruments called LiDARs, which is sort of like a radar, but using a laser. And that will give us most of the information we need. And it's a lot less expensive to have a LiDAR than a radar truck out there. So that's another part, right? Is I could propose the moon, right? But there is a finite number of dollars out there for research. And so you have certain numbers you have to hit. You have to be economical about how you're doing your science, right? And if you're going to bring out the heavy hitters, you really, really have to have strong justification about why we need to spend millions of dollars to do something.
Yeah.
And that's important, right? Because at the end of the day, all of your viewers and you guys are helping support my research with some fraction of a cent that came out of your taxes. And I'm cognizant of that, right? I'm thankful that we have this type of research, because I think it makes our weather community really great in our country. And that's why we're leaders and so much stuff comes to weather.
And Aaron, we're running out of time here, so a couple of quick last questions. Have you found it more gratifying to do research on severe weather or this project you're on right now?
That's a good question. I tell you what, doing a storm chasing field campaign is pretty exciting. Staying at random motels across the southern central plains, not so exciting.
Right.
So I tell you what, I've stayed in the motel in Hallock before. That place is pretty solid. Anywhere up here, I'm happy to stay. And when you have a field campaign that's sort of fixed in location, it makes the logistics a lot easier than traveling wherever the storms may be. And
I can imagine.
I think that's a little more
And okay, one last question. I've been in this business over 25 years, and I've worked with a lot of fresh meteorologists out of school. Justin, and I will honestly say, I give him so much grief. He's probably one of the smartest meteorologists I've worked with that has just come out of school. Now, my question is, what was he really like? Did he sleep in class? I mean, did he really get anything done?
You know what? I would never judge a student if he slept in class. That's what I did. And also, I'm not going to tell you how many days of class I missed storm chasing in Oklahoma, but it was probably too many. But here I am today, and I think at the end of the day, it benefited me. And I guess in Justin, I saw a little bit of me because he loves storm chasing and getting out there and actually observing. And that's where my passion is. So I love students like Justin.
See, Justin, there's
thanks,
hope.
Aaron.
There's hope for you, Justin. See?
Oh, thankfully. There we go.
But you guys,
I don't even remember what Justin's grades were, and I wouldn't be able to discuss them anyway, so it's no big deal.
Yeah. But here's the thing. We've seen Justin drive, so how in the world could he chase a storm?
Oh, man. He drives slower than my grandma. Oh.
Well, we probably need more of that in the storm community right now.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, Aaron, well, this has been great. If anyone wants to read up on more information about this research you're doing, or if you have any social media platforms associated with this research, or even personal, if you want to plug any of those, where could people go to?
I mainly hang out on Twitter, for what it's worth. Kennedy Clouds is my Twitter handle, and I'll be there as long as it's there, I guess. You never know what Elon's up to, but my university website, I think I put up a message. It was like, oh, I need to update that website. And that was like a week before the whole COVID fiasco. I haven't updated it since then. So I'm horrible at that side of things. I just work on getting the papers out and getting students graduated and call it good.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, again, Aaron, thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and hopefully the research goes well for you. No problem.
Good luck on your project, Aaron.
Thanks.
We'll take a look at the American Ag Network when we come back. We've got a few more ag topics to get to. We'll take a look at that forecast again, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Foston Tri-Co-op is hiring an agronomy manager. Must have sales and agronomy experience, able to sell crop protection, fertilizer, and chemicals. College degree in agronomy or equal experience is preferred. Enjoy competitive salary and benefits, including health, long-term disability, dental, life insurance, HAS, paid vacation, and retirement match and profit sharing. Email resume to jen.howard@fostoncoop.com or call 218-435-6919 and ask for Brent. Foston Tri-Co-op, hiring an agronomy manager, and it could be you.
Oh, can you imagine a stress-free Sunday with family, friends, fun, and food? You can have it when you make Barron's your new Sunday brunch headquarters. Experience a brunch like nowhere else. Your kids will love the customizable waffle bar, fresh scrambled eggs, thick cut bacon, and much more. Plus, while Mama sips on a mimosa, you can wear out the kids in the arcade at Kingpin's.
For a stress-free Sunday, mention My Brunch Headquarters and receive 20% off brunch at Barron's. Make your Sunday stress-free, filled with great food, no cleanup, and most importantly, where family, friends, fun, and food come together for brunch at Barron's. Go to brunchatbarons.com. Again, brunch at BARONS.com. And don't forget to mention My Brunch Headquarters for 20% off and experience your stress-free Sunday at brunchatbarons.com.
Brunch at Barron's, located inside Kingpin's off I-29 and 52nd Avenue South in Fargo.
Tired of fast food for lunch? Then choose delicious food made fresh every day. Choose O'Kelly's with fresh made tasty lunches for only $10. And they've added some new menu items like Shrimp Street Tacos and Chips. Enjoy the Pork Belly Street Tacos, the Burrito Bowl, Chicken Caesar, Meatball Sub, Roast Beef Melt, or the Cuban. All sandwiches come with chips and each sandwich made fresh every day and only $10 any weekday. Now that's a lunch you can sink your teeth into. That's O'Kelly's. Delicious food priced right. I-29 in Maine in Fargo.
Mixed activity in the markets. This is the American Ag Network of Jesse Allen with this market update. We're talking now with Arlen Suderman of StoneX. Arlen, mixed bags, soybeans under the most pressure here today. Let's look there first as we see, wondering what is happening with beans. Is this the case of some technical moves in the market? Is it outside pressures? What are you seeing there as we head to the holiday weekend?
Part of it is just simply technical selling with the algos piling on, but the fundamental reason behind it seems to be the big crop in Brazil, and we've been warning about this. In fact, a few weeks back, I was saying that there's over 4 billion bushels of Brazilian soybeans being harvested that need to be sold. They have a limited amount of storage available. The latest data we got from a couple of days ago was that 3.1 billion bushels of soybeans still needed to be sold by the farmer there, and they're actively selling those soybeans as they harvest them off the combine right now. And that's adding to pressure. Brazilian farmers are not much different than U.S. farmers, and when they start to see a rally start to fade, particularly after we had the big crash there at the end of February, that really got their attention, and they want to take advantage of prices before they get worse. We've been seeing a sharp break in the basis levels, indicating that selling is going on in Brazil.
And once again, that's Arlen Suderman, Chief Commodities Economist at StoneX. We see a little pressure in corn, spillover from beans as well, spreading in corn between old and new crop. We see Chicago wheat down a little bit with KC and spring wheat a little bit higher with some weather factoring in there. Meantime, cattle and hogs, strong day in cattle. Hogs rebounding as well after a marketing year high in hogs for export sales this week. Crude oil unchanged at 80.61. The Dow Jones down 32 points here at last check. S&P up 7, NASDAQ 58 higher. This is the American Ag Network. I'm Jesse Allen.
And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this cold but improving afternoon compared to yesterday. Temperatures in the 20s across the area, pushing 30. And if you're asking, what's our normal high for this time of the year? 49 is where we should be at for this time of the year. And after a chilly night tonight, we got some clouds moving in, and then we'll see a few light snow showers late tonight, early tomorrow. Doesn't look like it's going to pose a problem at all. And temperatures a little warmer tomorrow in the 30s, and then even warmer for Easter weekend. 40s, low 40s on Saturday and Sunday, and then temperatures warming into the 50s by next week. So we're looking at some much milder weather. We don't want a quick warm up too fast, because then that'll exacerbate any flooding potential. But it looks like a nice mellow kind of climb out into the 50s, and some spots even could touch 60. It's not out of the question, and it looks like we'll kind of hang there. I don't see a prolonged, real warm stretch, but definitely at least 40s for at least the next week, if not a little longer than that. Just not seeing any cold air, any below normal temperature readings coming back. Now, again, the LRC calendar has something pegged middle of the month and then towards the end of the month, and we'll have to keep a close eye on those, because if it can tap enough cold air in the track of the storm, it all plays a big part on what kind of precip we'll get. But we definitely see two impactful storms, at least a possibility, unless they slide south, and I'd be just fine with that. But that's something, just keep that on your radar right around mid-month, and then shortly after that as well. So we're not out of the woods yet. Let's just hope for a nice slow climb into spring instead of a sharp vault that would or a big rainstorm, which we don't see either. But again, any of those two storms on the LRC, they have the potential of producing some heavy rain and thunderstorms, but let's just hope that's down to our south a little bit.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dean. I appreciate that.
It'd be interesting to see how long this stretch has been since we've last had a day above average, because I got a feeling it's been quite a while.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, we couldn't even crack 40 for how many days there? We're approaching 150 days, I think, or 140, something like that.
140, 145 or something.
It's been pretty cold, and I'm sure a few people over this winter have probably muttered the saying, "I'm freezing my balls off right now," and this kind of goes into the ag topic of infertile bulls, because it's
nice
been so cold. So literally, what's going on here, Bridgette?
Okay, all those days back in the cold part of the winter when we saw wind chills getting down to minus 20, even down to minus 60, well, bulls have extremities, and you can add extra straw to bed them down. A lot of times your bulls are kept outside, not necessarily in a barn, and that frostbite on that particular extremity can actually affect sperm count. And so later on, when you turn the bulls out with your cows, you don't get calves, right? Because that just didn't work so well. So this is a reminder from Extension as well as several of the breeding associations to remember to get your bulls checked, take them to your vet. You can literally have them tested to make sure that they are not infertile. So later on, when it's time to put those bulls in with the cows, things are working the way they're supposed to. But yeah, it's been cold out there, even for the critters.
They need to make little stocking caps for them.
Oh, man. Wow. Good thing we're out of time. Oh,
Get your knitting needles out.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good. Let's wrap this. All right, the train is going off the track.
Hey, we got 20 seconds to go further in the ditch here.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. Well, I
have been waiting to do that story for you guys.
Oh, the knitting and that topped it.
Hey, Grandma, I got a project for you.
Well, that'll do it for us today here on Weather and Ag in Focus. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.
AM 970 and FM 93.1.